18 seconds. That's how long it took for the smile to disappear. Not the knockout, not the end of the fight, just the moment when everything the veteran thought he knew stopped mattering. When the confidence he had carried into the ring, the subtle condescension he had worn like armor for weeks, cracked and fell away. 18 seconds. And in those 18 seconds he understood what fear actually felt like. His name doesn't matter. He was a type, the kind of fighter the sport produced in the late 80s when Mike Tyson was tearing through the heavyweight division like a natural disaster. Undefeated, 32 wins, no losses, a legitimate champion with his own belt and his own reputation. He had fought real competition. He had gone the distance with tough men. He knew how to move, how to think, how to survive. And when the fight with Tyson was announced, he didn't panic. He respected the challenge, sure, but he didn't fear it. Fear was for the unprepared, and he was not unprepared. In the press conferences leading up to the fight, he was careful. He didn't trash talk. He didn't make bold predictions. That wasn't his style. But there was something in the way he spoke, a tone, a slight upturn at the corner of his mouth when reporters asked if he was worried about Tyson's power. "I've been hit before," he said. "I know how to handle pressure." The words were respectful, but underneath them was something else, a quiet belief that Tyson's reputation was built on fighting men who folded too easily, men who were intimidated before the first bell. He wasn't one of those men. He had been in wars. He had earned his place. And while Tyson might be dangerous, he was also young, 21 years old, raw, predictable. That belief carried him through training camp, through the final weeks of preparation, through the weigh-in where he stood face to face with Tyson and looked into those blank, unreadable eyes and felt nothing but his own certainty. Tyson was shorter, thicker. He looked like a weapon, sure, but weapons could be neutralized, especially by someone who knew what he was doing. The night of the fight, the veteran felt calm. His corner was talking strategy. Keep distance. Use the jab. Make Tyson work. Don't let him get inside early. He nodded along, but part of him wasn't listening. He was already visualizing the fight in his head, the way he would move, the way he would frustrate Tyson's aggression, the way the crowd would slowly realize that this wasn't going to be another quick demolition, that this was a real fight, and that he, the veteran, the underestimated one, was going to show the world that Mike Tyson was beatable. When his name was announced, he walked to the ring with his head high. The crowd booed. They weren't here for him. They were here to see Tyson destroy someone. He understood that. It didn't bother him. He climbed through the ropes and stretched in his corner, rolling his shoulders, keeping loose. Across the ring, Tyson stood perfectly still. No movement, no warm-up, just standing there with his hands at his sides and his eyes fixed straight ahead. The veteran glanced at him once, twice. There was something unsettling about that stillness, but he pushed the thought away. Stillness wasn't power. It was just a mind game, and he was too experienced to fall for mind games. The referee called them to the center for instructions. The veteran walked forward with his gloves loose at his sides. Tyson walked forward like he was being pulled by a string. When they stood face to face, the veteran looked down slightly. Tyson was 5 inches shorter. The reach advantage was significant. The veteran could work from the outside, keep him at range. He met Tyson's eyes for just a moment, and something cold moved through his chest, but he ignored it. He had felt nerves before. This was no different. They touched gloves. The referee stepped back. The veteran returned to his corner and took a deep breath. His trainer was saying something, but the words weren't registering anymore. The noise in the arena was deafening. Thousands of people screaming. He could feel the bass of it in his chest. He bounced on his toes, shook out his arms. The bell was about to ring. Everything he had trained for was about to happen. He was ready. The bell rang. Tyson came forward immediately. Not fast, not slow, just forward. The veteran circled to his left, exactly as planned. He threw a jab to establish range. Tyson didn't react, just kept coming. The veteran threw another jab, this one sharper, aimed at Tyson's forehead. It landed, clean. Tyson's head snapped back slightly and he blinked once, but he didn't stop. He took another step forward. The veteran reset. He was already breathing harder than he expected. His legs felt stiff. He told himself it was just adrenaline. First round jitters. He threw a double jab and started to circle again. Tyson cut off the angle. He wasn't chasing. He was just always there, closing space. The veteran threw a right hand, a real punch, trying to get Tyson's respect. Tyson slipped it by an inch and stepped closer. Now they were in range, close enough that the veteran could see the sweat already forming on Tyson's temples, close enough to see his eyes. And that's when the veteran felt it for the first time. Not pain, not impact, just awareness, a creeping realization that something was wrong. Tyson's hands weren't up. His guard was low, almost lazy, but his head was moving. Small circles, barely perceptible, and his eyes weren't looking at the veteran's face. They were looking through him, past him, like he wasn't even there yet. The veteran threw a left hook. Tyson ducked under it, and came up inside. Close now, chest to chest. The veteran tried to tie him up. He reached with his gloves to grab Tyson's shoulders and clinch, the way you do when you need space. But Tyson's body was too low, too compact, and before the veteran could reset, Tyson pivoted and drove a left hook into his ribs. The sound was wrong. A heavy thud that carried across the first few rows. The veteran's mouth opened. Not a gasp, just an involuntary response. The air left his lungs in a rush and his arms dropped slightly. Just for a moment, less than a second. But in that moment, Tyson stepped back and looked at him. That's when it happened. 18 seconds into the fight. 18 seconds after the opening bell. The veteran locked eyes with Mike Tyson and saw something that made his legs feel cold. It wasn't anger. It wasn't aggression. It was certainty. The kind of certainty that doesn't need to be spoken. The certainty of someone who has already seen the ending and is just waiting for everyone else to catch up. The veteran's breath caught. He tried to reset, tried to bring his guard back up and reassert the game plan. But his body wasn't responding the way it should. His arms felt heavier. His legs felt slower. And Tyson was still standing there, 2 feet away, head moving in those small circles, eyes fixed, waiting. The confidence the veteran had carried into the ring, the belief that his experience and skill would be enough, evaporated in that moment. Not because he had been hurt. The body shot had landed clean, but it wasn't devastating. It wasn't a knockdown. He was still standing, still functional. But something deeper had shifted. The mockery, the subtle condescension he had felt during the press tour, the quiet belief that Tyson was overrated, all of it disappeared, replaced by a single overwhelming realization. He was in danger, real danger, not the kind you prepare for in training camp, not the kind you manage with footwork and strategy, the kind that lives in your nervous system, the kind that makes your hands shake and your thoughts scatter. He had been in tough fights before, he had been hurt before, but this was different. This was the feeling of standing in front of something that couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be neutralized, could only be survived. Tyson came forward again. The veteran tried to move. He threw a jab, but it was weak. Arm punch, no conviction. Tyson walked through it and threw a right uppercut that grazed the veteran's chin. Not flush, just close enough to make him flinch. The veteran backed into the ropes. He wasn't thinking anymore, wasn't executing. He was reacting, and every reaction was a half-second too slow. Tyson pressed him against the ropes and went to work. Short punches, compact, nothing wild. A left hook to the body, a right hand upstairs, another left. The veteran tried to cover up, but his guard was collapsing. His elbows were too wide, his gloves weren't in the right position, and every time Tyson landed, the veteran felt something inside himself crack a little more. The referee stepped in. He didn't stop the fight, not yet, but he grabbed Tyson's shoulder and pulled him back. He looked at the veteran and asked if he was okay. The veteran nodded. He was still standing, still conscious, but his eyes told a different story. They were wide, unfocused, searching for something that wasn't there anymore. The fight continued. It lasted longer than 18 seconds, of course. The official time would be recorded as something else. 2 minutes, 3, maybe more. The veteran kept fighting because that's what fighters do. He threw punches. He moved. He tried to survive. But the fight was already over. It had been over in those first 18 seconds when he looked into Tyson's eyes and understood that all his preparation, all his experience, all his confidence meant nothing against something this inevitable. When the referee finally stopped it, the veteran didn't argue. He turned and walked to his corner and sat down on the stool and stared at the canvas. His face wasn't bruised. He hadn't been knocked out cold, but something had been taken from him that night that he would never get back. The belief that he belonged in the same ring as Mike Tyson. That belief was gone, and everyone watching knew it. In the locker room afterward, someone asked him what happened. He didn't have an answer. How do you explain that you lost a fight in the first 18 seconds, even though you were still standing? How do you put into words the moment when certainty replaces confidence, and you realize you're not fighting a man, you're fighting an ending that's already been written? Mike Tyson didn't need to mock his opponents. He didn't need to trash talk or make predictions. His power wasn't in his words. It was in those moments. Those brief, terrible moments when an opponent looked into his eyes and saw nothing but their own defeat reflected back at them, when the game plan fell apart, when experience stopped mattering, when all that was left was the realization that they were in over their heads and there was no way out. The veteran had come into that fight believing he was different, that he could handle Tyson, that his skill and discipline would be enough, and for the weeks leading up to the fight, that belief had felt real, solid, justified. But 18 seconds after the bell rang, it was gone, replaced by fear, by doubt, by the crushing awareness that some opponents can't be prepared for. They can only be survived, and sometimes not even that. Years later, boxing analysts would study that era. They would break down Tyson's technique, his footwork, his combinations, his ability to generate power from short distances, and all of that was real. All of that mattered. But the people who had been in the ring with him, the ones who had felt what the veteran felt in those 18 seconds, they knew something the analyst didn't. Mike Tyson's greatest weapon wasn't his fists. It was the moment when his opponent realized they had made a mistake, when the confidence they carried into the ring revealed itself as illusion, when mockery turned to fear, when the fight stopped being about winning and became about surviving. That moment, more than any punch, was what broke fighters. And once that moment happened, the outcome was inevitable. 18 seconds. That's how long it took for the veteran to understand. The rest of the fight was just formality, the ending playing out in real time, and everyone watching, from the judges to the crowd to the people screaming at their television screens, they all saw it happen. The shift, the break, the moment when a confident, undefeated champion became just another name on Mike Tyson's record. Not because he wasn't skilled, not because he wasn't tough, but because in 18 seconds he learned what fear actually was. And once you learn that, once it gets inside you during a fight, there's no coming back. The bell rang. Tyson came forward, and 18 seconds later, the veteran understood. Everything else was just details. You've probably never been in a boxing ring with Mike Tyson, but you've been in that moment. The moment when your confidence meets reality and reality wins. When something you thought you understood reveals itself as far more dangerous than you prepared for. Maybe it was a presentation you thought you had nailed, until the first hard question exposed how shallow your preparation really was. Maybe it was a conversation you walked into thinking you had the upper hand, until 18 seconds in you realized you were out of your depth. Maybe it was a challenge you accepted because you thought you were ready, until the moment arrived and you understood too late that ready and capable are not the same thing. That feeling in your chest, that cold awareness, it's not panic, not yet, it's something quieter. The realization that the narrative you built in your head, the one where you succeed through skill and preparation, has just been proven wrong. And now you have to keep going, keep fighting, keep pretending you still believe you can win, even though something deep inside you already knows you can't. The veteran walked into that ring with an undefeated record and years of experience. He had every reason to believe in himself. And for weeks, maybe months, that belief felt justified. But 18 seconds after the bell rang, belief didn't matter anymore. Only reality mattered. And reality was standing 2 feet away with dead eyes and patient hands, waiting. You can't prepare for that moment. Not really. You can train. You can study. You can visualize success. But when you meet something that operates on a different level, all that preparation becomes noise. And what's left is just you and the truth. The truth that you're overmatched. The truth that confidence isn't the same as capability. The truth that some challenges don't care how ready you think you are. The question isn't whether you'll face that moment. You will. Everyone does eventually. The question is what you do when it happens. Do you keep fighting even though you know it's over? Do you survive as long as you can and walk away with whatever dignity remains? Or do you fold completely, letting that 18-second realization destroy not just the moment but everything that comes after? The veteran kept fighting. That's worth something. He didn't quit. He didn't turn away. He took the punches and tried to survive, and when the referee finally stopped it, he walked back to his corner on his own. That's not victory, but it's not nothing either, because the hardest fights aren't the ones you win. They're the ones where you realize too late that winning was never an option, and you have to keep going anyway. Where confidence becomes awareness, and awareness becomes survival, and all you can do is stand there and take it until someone decides you've had enough. Mike Tyson didn't just beat fighters. He showed them the moment when their belief in themselves became irrelevant, when skill and experience and preparation stopped being enough, when the only thing left was raw, undeniable reality. 18 seconds. That's how long it takes for reality to set in. And once it does, everything that comes after is just the aftermath. Just the slow, inevitable conclusion to a story that was already written the moment you realized you were in over your head. The bell rang. The veteran believed he was ready, and 18 seconds later, he learned the difference between confidence and truth. That's not a boxing story. That's a human story. And it happens every day. In boardrooms, in relationships, in moments where we walk in thinking we know what we're facing, and reality teaches us otherwise. The only question is whether we'll keep standing when that moment comes, whether we'll keep fighting even after we know we've already lost. The veteran did, and that matters, even if no one remembers his name.